Plato once said that wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. Now, Plato was a Greek philosopher that lived during the 4th century. He was a student of the famous Socrates, whose favorite method of teaching was through question and answer dialogues, and that's why we call them Socratic dialogues. And the very Socrates also thought that everything could be achieved, through your reason and thinking, and because of that, we know he was put to death for his beliefs. And we see that this had a big effect on Plato's life through his essays that have been put together as the last days of Socrates, and things like the Apology or Crito. We can see the effect that it had on Plato. Plato was also the teacher of another famous philosopher, Aristotle, who wrote things such as the Poetics or Nicomachean Ethics. And Aristotle was also a tutor of Alexander the Great. But he would never have achieved any of these things if he had never had Plato as his teacher. For Plato said that wise men speak because they have something to say, and he definitely lived by that in his writings, because, as I said, he wrote things like Crito, Phaedo, the Apology. He even wrote the Republic, which is probably such an important book in the Western civilization. And he wrote these things because the contents of these books, he wrote them because he had something to say. He had something to say on how the world could be run better. He had something to say on rhetoric and on justice, morality. And he wrote these so people could learn about them, and if they learned about them, it could help shape the world into a better place. But, as I said, he had something to say. So, he wanted you to take his advice because he was teaching you, but he was just putting it out there. You didn't expect you have to do what I say, because we see that even Aristotle, his own student, disagreed with him a little bit. But this is in contrast what fools do. Fools say something just because they have to say it. And Plato never did this. He never wanted attention and never said something because he wanted people to look at him and go, hey, that guy over there, he's really intelligent. He never wrote things down for his own pride. And so people in general, and especially Christians, we can look at Plato's example and we can think to ourselves, the thing that's about to come out of my mouth, is it something wise? Is it something that I'm going to say that is wise? It's going to be better for the world in a way that it can teach someone or correct someone in a way that's going to, shape the world better? Or is it foolish? Do I want to say this just because I want to say something so people can look at me and see that I am intelligent, and I want my pride to build up? And this is bad because, especially as Christians, we know that pride is the root of all sin. And so I also think that as Christians, we can look at this and we can see that the person who said this quote is Plato. And Plato lived before Jesus had ever come into the world, and he had no affiliation with Israel or the Jews, so he did not even know God or the gospel. Yet he had the sense to know that you say something, a wise man says something because he has something to say that's going to teach people and shape the world better, and that a fool says something to get people to look at them. So how much more can we Christians apply that into our lives than Plato did, who was a pagan, and yet he still could apply this principle? I think that we should, appreciate everything that Plato did for us, and we should look at his advice because we see this quote, and he has something good to say. How much more advice does he have in his books that can be taken in a Christian context, and that can be good to say? So We should always keep in the back of our minds that wise men speak because they have something to say, and fools because they have to say something.